Hi everyone, it's Colette from Brand by Me. Welcome to the last in our series, Steering Your Brand Through Turbulent Times. This is the last live in the series, and at the end I'll talk a bit about connected with us. And I will say it's the last for now. We'll take a break. We will be back with something different, but we're taking a break. Not quite sure how long for yet, but we'll see how this goes. So the last in the series, and we're going to do another What's Stopping You session. So we're building on last week's theme of what's stopping you, what's stopping us from speaking out. So last week we talked about how to speak out. This week we're going to talk about what's stopping us speaking out. Because, as I said last week, we can't stop speaking out at this time. Yes, we're in a global pandemic, but injustice is still there. There are other big burning issues that we still need to keep on top of, even in the midst of this. And it's really important that we speak out. And also, what we'll find is the most vulnerable and disadvantaged communities that we help will be disproportionately affected by this crisis too. So it's really important that we continue to speak out on their behalf and represent their needs. So that's why we did How to Speak Out last week. And that's why this week we're doing What's Stopping You from Speaking Out. So I'd love to hear from you, kind of what's stopping you from speaking out. Any comments or questions you've got, do just put them in the chat box, in the live chat, and I'll come to them at various points. But I had to think about this as always. I went out to my network, I started talking, getting some comments, and I've identified there are three barriers in addition to those we've talked about. So some of the ones we've talked about in previous What's Stopping You sessions, I'm not going to go over those again, but they do apply here. But there are three specific ones that are what's stopping us speaking out at the moment. The first one is too much empathy. Now, Colette, you're probably saying, how can you have too much empathy? Empathy is a really good thing. And in fact, that was one of your rules in week one. Yes, it was, because I think it's important that we do have empathy at this time. So we're really looking to understand and see the perspective of our audiences and see stuff in terms of how this is impacting them. But too much empathy is where we start just feeling the weight of so many problems and outside perspectives and just everybody's chatting that so strongly that it actually paralyzes us and stops us speaking out. Because every time we want to speak out, and we're like, oh, but this person probably feels like this, oh, but this person, and that's where we get into paralysis. So when it comes to speaking out, it's really important that we create boundaries, that we absolutely are able to have some sort of objectivity so that we're still able to speak out and challenge whilst being empathetic, but we don't let that empathy kind of move us to a space where we just can't to speak out because we're just so overwhelmed by everything, or that we're seeing so many conflicting perspectives that we lose our voice. That makes sense. So too much empathy, good thing. Too much empathy becomes a barrier to us speaking out. So it's really important we have those boundaries. The second one, fear of backlash. So we talk about fear on this every single week, don't we? In terms of one of the barriers that stop us from doing stuff at this time. But specifically, fear of backlash is something that will stop us from speaking out at this time. So if we're really worried about, what if we get criticism, or what if this group of people doesn't like what we're saying, it will stop us from speaking out. Here's the thing. If we are speaking out with authority on a cause that's really important right now, everybody isn't going to like it. You will get criticism. You may even get backlash. I'll give you an example of something I saw in, unsurprisingly, Daily Fail. I'll be clear, I didn't see it. I saw a screenshot of the headline. I did not go to that horrible publication and look at anything, because I don't do that. But in that newspaper, I think I've talked to you before about a campaign called Charity So White, which is all about calling out the systemic and institutional racism in the charity sector. And they do very positive work in terms of helping people and organisations understand how to avoid that, how to understand how to tackle it and address it from the ground roots up, from a leadership level. They do great work. So they've been focused on how to help charities understand and act to maybe address the fact that this is impacting BME audiences more than others. So, and that's something that they've been speaking out on quite a lot, and they've been doing some work with charities and really constructive stuff like workshops. In the Daily Mail, there was a headline this week: charity campaigners skew data to show the BME impact of COVID-19 on BME impact of impact of COVID-19 on BME audiences, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, something like that. And that's an example of backlash, honestly. But did it stop Charity White from speaking out? No. Because actually they know full well that the Daily Mail is always going to take that view. The Daily Mail is not their audience, and they're not going to find audiences through, the people that read that publication, probably. So it's really important that you understand you will get backlash, and that you feel free to speak up with authority anyway. Now, backlash and feedback are different. So if you're getting feedback from audiences that you want to speak to, that maybe the way you're speaking out isn't appropriate, or they're finding it not great at this time, that's when you need to look at that and seek that as constructive feedback. But just getting a backlash from people that unfortunately are never going to support you anyway, don't worry about it. So fear of backlash, let's not let that stop us. So far we've talked about too much empathy, fear of backlash as being two of the key barriers that stop us from speaking out at this time. The third one is a word that I've heard of, a lot, but it's really come up recently, which is this idea of toxic positivity. So toxic positivity, so let me be clear about this. I am an optimist. I'm an optimistic person. I genuinely believe in the power of positive thinking. And I love to, and take positive action and speak out and represent positive things. But that's not toxic. Being positive is not toxic positivity in any way. Toxic positivity is when you pose the view that actually we can speak about positive things, and you come back on people that aren't doing that and call them negative, or insult people that you think are not doing that. So it's when you're mandating. Toxic positivity is when, and there are people and publications and stuff that really do this. They mandate that all we can do is paint a very positive picture of the world. Well, we know that's not true at the moment, is it? So we must still be able to speak out. And what you'll find is, in a culture of toxic positivity, when you start to speak out, people will come at you and call you pessimistic. They'll tell you can't speak about that now. Why can't you take the positive view? Now, unfortunately, there are just some things we can't take a positive view of. We've got to be able to challenge, call out, and speak really strongly and raise and talk about issues. We have to, now more than ever. So actually, again, toxic positivity can be a barrier to speaking out, but it's another one we can't let that stop us. We have to, in fact, what I've seen works really well is where people are sort of, inadvertently moving to a place where they're speaking in a way that is kind of toxically positive and slamming down anything that encourages healthy debate. It's useful to say to those people that actually is part of the problem, because actually we must be able to speak out on the issues that matter. And that means both speaking up against the issue before you can point to a solution. Now, again, I said we need to be constructive in the way that we're speaking out. So it is important. You don't have to have all the answers, but you must be able to, point people to a solution, tell people an alternative, say what they can do to help. Those are very good things when we're speaking out. But we can't shy away from speaking out on the issue either. And if people are saying, oh, you can't talk about the issue, that's just not appropriate now, that is leading to a culture of toxic positivity. We shouldn't let that hold us back. So they are my three barriers. Too much empathy, so we need to create boundaries. Fear of backlash, so we need to be sure that actually we're not afraid of critics that are never in the audience that are going to be able to help us. And toxic positivity, we have to be able to speak out on the issue, and as long as we're constructive in it, it's totally fine. So at this point, I will pause and say, again, if you have questions or comments on this, please do, add them in the chat box if you can. That would be really good. But in the meantime, that is it in terms of my take on this issue and in terms of what's stopping us speaking out. And I said I'd talk about, because this is the last one, how you can stay in touch and find out when this is coming back. There are two ways I'd recommend that you do that. The first, and actually you can do both of these. It would be really brilliant if you do both. But the first one is sign up to our mailing list. So if you go to brandbyme.co.uk, you'll be able, and actually I think on the YouTube channel there's also a link to go to and visit the website. But if you go to brandbyme.co.uk, you will be able to sign up to our mailing list. We do a weekly newsletter at the moment, and actually our mailing list are pretty much the first to hear about anything that we're doing. So when these come back, you'll hear about it. And the second way you can keep in touch is to connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on LinkedIn. Because actually LinkedIn is where I will continue this debate and discussion around steering your brand through turbulent times. I'm speaking specifically to, brand people and brand leaders, as well as all of us that have brands at this time. So it's a really good one. It's like linkedin.com/in/brand by Colette. But honestly, if you search Colette Phillips, that's me. Colette Phillips from Brand by Me, you'll be able to, connect with me easily. And that's a really good way to find out. Of course, if email and LinkedIn aren't your thing, then you will be able to still follow us on our other channels. We're at Brand by Me HQ, or I'm at Brand by Me, at Brand by Me. I'm at Brand by Colette, at Brand by Colette, at Brand by Me HQ. So that's how you can get in touch with us. And I would say do connect, because we will come back, but I haven't determined when that'll be yet. And we're going to take a break for a few weeks from this series and then come back probably at some point during June with a slightly different take on the theme, because things have moved on. So I can see I've got a question. So can I tell you of any times where people shouldn't speak out, and give some examples? I will say, actually, yeah, there are times when you shouldn't speak out. I think there's a couple. I think if you are, if it's something you don't feel passionately about, don't speak out on it. So there can be times when a lot of people are speaking about an issue and you think, oh, it's a hot topic, maybe I should get involved. If you don't have a view, don't speak out. If you don't feel strongly, don't speak out. You can, and I talked about this last week, you can amplify other people's voices. So if you think, oh, yeah, that campaign's really good, you can feel free to kind of share and share other people's voice, amplify their voice. Don't feel like you need to speak out yourself unless it is something you're passionate about. The other thing is, if you aren't informed, beware of speaking out. Because actually, it's when we speak out, particularly at this time, people may come at you. So it's really important that you have information, and that information doesn't mean data. It can be lived experience. So lived experience of those around you, you can draw on data, but you should be speaking from an informed position. And if you're not able to do that, again, maybe that's the time you amplify the voices of others. The other thing I would say, and this comes back to my point on too much empathy, or maybe if you're feeling all the feels, right? If you're feeling all the feels, it's a very emotional time. And if you're feeling over all the feels and you're feeling overwhelmed, or you're feeling like, a bit angry about something. I love righteous anger. I think that's a great place to speak out from. But sort of ranty anger, probably not the place to speak out from. So I'll give you an example. Obviously people, this is on LinkedIn, a lot of people are speaking out about sort of furloughed staff at the moment, and, supporting the importance of supporting the staff on furlough. I've seen a couple of posts where people are saying, furloughed staff should just be grateful they have jobs. If I'm a business owner, I haven't got time to speak to my furloughed staff, never mind. And again, I don't think that's an appropriate way to be speaking out at all. You're attacking, a group that is actually having a hard time right now. Or I saw something else where somebody was like, well, I'm a business owner. You know, they should be lucky they don't have to work. I'm working really hard. Again, that sort of speaking out is unhelpful because everybody is finding it really challenging at this time. It's not useful to sort of point the finger at somebody else who's equally having a challenging time just because you think you have it harder. That's not the kind of speaking out we need at this time. So I guess those are the two examples I would say in terms of maybe when not to speak out. But beyond that, I think if you you are an authority on an issue, if you have a view, if you can share lived experiences or the lived experiences around you, and you know and you have insight into an issue or a community that really need you to speak up for them, be brave and do speak out, because I think that voice needs to be heard. And if you're speaking out from a position of being informed, you won't get that wrong. So thanks for the emojis. So any more comments or questions? If not, I'm going to leave you with this. Pause. Nope, I don't think there are any. So I'm just going to leave you with a bit of a sum up of the series. So we've talked about the importance of taking action, the importance of staying visible, staying true to who you are, and speaking out what matters. And for me, that's the formula of how to steer your brand through these turbulent times. Make sure that you continue to take positive action and identify what that positive action is. Make sure that you can be visible, even if that's just to the audiences that you're closest to. Stay close to them and connected with them. Make sure that you stay true to who you are. So we talked about the importance of your purpose and values and really connecting with them and working out how they're relevant now. And finally, as we've talked about today, don't let anything stop you from speaking out on what matters. That's how we're going to steer our brands through turbulent times. And, whatever through looks like, we don't know what the other side of this looks like, but we can do that. Thanks so much for tuning in over these last few weeks. I really, really appreciate it. I hope it's been useful. Do again share these episodes, even past ones, with people that can benefit. And do keep subscribed. Just because we're taking a break now doesn't mean we're not going to come back, and we'll still be doing a lot more of these lives and video tips. So thank you so much and have a great weekend. Bye.